Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Jason.
And today Jason wants to talk about...
Super Nintendo.
The Super Nintendo. So on this show, which is now a show, I go up to Jason and go, hey Jason, what do you want to talk about? And then he tells me what he wants to talk about. And then we sit down and we start talking about it. And this morning Jason goes, hey Dad, I want to talk about the Super Nintendo. And I was like... I mean, I know you really like video games, but why specifically the Super Nintendo? And he was like, I don't know, it just came to me. I like the Super Nintendo. Let's talk about it.
Super Nintendo. It has one of the best, some of the best Nintendo games.
It's got a really good, solid library.
It's got a really good library, yeah.
Yeah. So where does Super Nintendo rank for you?
Rank for me?
With consoles. And that might be a video for us to do down the road where we do like a top 10 consoles, or we just rank. Maybe ranking every console we own would be a cool one to do.
That would be a cool one,
and maybe we get them all out.
Yeah, that would be, I mean...
That's cool, and we would just set them up in a line and then pick them up, and, you know, here's the Saturn, really cool, and here's the Dreamcast, and here's the NES, and 64, and here's where they rank for us, And then we could do the same thing with controllers.
Yeah.
I'd love to do a controller ranking video.
But my favorite controller at this point is probably GameCube, but then N64 is still second for me.
Ugh, really?
Yeah.
That's so weird.
It's the stick. I'm a big fan of that stick.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't like the stick, but I really don't like what that controller feels like in your hands. Like, it can't be a comfort thing.
No, it's not. It's just fun for, like, multiplayer games.
Jason prefers to be uncomfortable when he's playing a video game with a controller in his hand. But yeah, I was kind of surprised that you said Super Nintendo and not something more broad, you know, like being, like, the video game researcher you are. Like, I thought you might go, let's just talk about, like, I don't know, Nintendo history or Mario games. Or...
I was going to do that. I was going to be like, let's talk about Nintendo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was surprised that you locked it down to a console like you did.
Yeah, I thought that would be fun. And I think maybe down the line, maybe in like 10 more topics or something, we could do another one of these where we just pick a specific console. I think just every once in a while that would be a cool thing.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think we've done anything video games yet. Well, we did Sonic.
No, we did Sonic.
That's true.
And I was like, I want to do another video game thing. Because it's been a while since we've done that.
But Sonic at least is a cross-pollination thing where we were able to cover a bunch of different mediums.
Yeah. But the Super Nintendo is the Super Nintendo.
So EAE put in a comment and says Jason had to be about negative 20 years old when SNES was SNES was released. By the way, do you say SNES or SNES?
It depends. I mean, sometimes I say the Super Nintendo, sometimes I say the SNES, sometimes I say the SNES. I've heard people say just the Super, and I think that's weird.
Well, you know what? I did that growing up. I got over that. I don't say that anymore. I think just because when it was current, you'd say Super or you'd say Genesis.
Yeah.
But it's kind of weird to say that now. It just feels inaccurate because there's so much else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But anyway, I never used to say SNES. I've always been just SNES.
Yeah.
And then I just caught myself reading it as SNES, which is weird. I hardly ever do that. And I think it's just because I hear it more often now.
Yeah, I do say SNES sometimes, but I do think it sounds weird, but I don't know.
I've never really liked speaking out an acronym like that. Like, I've never liked TOS over TOS with Star Trek.
Oh, yeah, TOS is weird.
I had a friend in high school that just got on me all the time for saying TOS instead of TOS. I'm like, you sound pretentious when you say TOS. Stop it. But I don't guess I mind SNES as much for whatever reason.
I say SNES, but I don't say NES. Like, I think...
Nobody... Yeah, and that's what's weird. I don't think anybody says NES, do they?
But also...
Is that because NES is a character?
But also, SNES isn't a Smash character. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe it's just a matter of not wanting to sound confusing.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's weird. EAE SNES sounds like sneeze.
Yeah.
Everything So Special says Super Famicom.
Yeah. I don't say that because I'm American, but...
I was going to say, like...
I say it when I'm talking about the Super Famicom.
The actual Super Famicom.
But I don't... Yeah.
No, that's a fun way to end that debate, though. SNES, 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 Super Famicom.
Right. But, like, no one says Super Nintendo Entertainment System.
No, you're not going to say the whole thing out,
Yeah.
So, back to my initial question, where does it rank for you? Is this one of your absolute favorite systems?
By now, probably.
Is it, like, top 5?
I mean, It probably is at this point.
Well, when he said, I meant to talk about that comment, when he said that you were, like, negative 20 years old, so, like, 19, so you were born in 2010,
Yep.
The Super Nintendo comes out in 1991, and if you spend any time with Jayson at all, you'll have to remind yourself that he wasn't actually there for this stuff, and in the 90s, because you've spent so much time, and not just because, like, you're my kid and this is what I'm into, like, you're also into stuff I'm not into.
Yeah.
You're a dancer, you're into hip-hop music, like, there's stuff you like that I have never cared about,
Yeah.
that I've never really been into, I should say, but with this stuff, obviously, I was an influence and I got you into video games at an early age.
Yeah.
But then you really ran off with the research side of it.
Yeah.
And not to, I don't mean to sound like, braggadocious about it or anything, but I just feel like you really, like, appreciate and get this stuff almost as if you lived it. It's always felt to me.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, because I feel like my favorite console at this point is the Switch, just because it just can do pretty much anything. And then after that is probably the 64, and then, honestly, probably the SNES.
Really?
Yeah. And
so you think it might even be top 3?
Yeah, and then maybe the DS? I don't know. Well, I mean, I guess...
See, it hurts my feelings that there's not even a Sega system in there, and that's how you know that me and Jayson are not the same person.
Yeah. Because
he's not putting any Sega in there.
Well, I'm not really. I don't know. The Dreamcast is fine. The Saturn has probably the best library, but it just doesn't have a very big library.
Oh, I don't think the Saturn has the best library at all, but it's got a really good Japanese library.
Yeah, and then the Genesis I play for 10 minutes and then get bored. Like, that's just kind of how I don't know.
Yeah, some of that is a bit of a maybe you had to be there kind of thing, because when it comes to Sega, I have more nostalgia for the hardware in some ways than I do the software, which is weird. I mean, obviously, some of my favorite games are absolutely Sega games.
Yeah.
But I do have that a little bit, and I have to admit that inevitably we'll have to talk a little bit about console wars. I'm sure we'll talk about the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
But I have to admit that, of course, with third-party games, Super Nintendo was usually better. And that Super Nintendo had a first-party library of more games that I played.
Yeah.
But the first... let's say first person, first party, third party. The first party stuff on Genesis that I did play, and on Sega in general that I did play, I think I probably just had more of a passion for it, more of a love for it.
Yeah.
So it ends up being about quality over quantity.
Yeah, that's true.
Or at least like personal appreciation over quantity, I should say.
Yeah.
Because there's no putting Sonic above like Sonic 2 over Mario World.
Right.
You can't compare
do
these two things.
No, they're two completely different games.
And two equally wonderful games.
Right.
I think
so. I mean, I don't like Mario World as much as you. I also didn't grow up with Mario World.
Yeah.
I'm more of a Mario 3 guy, but...
That's okay.
Yeah.
We can agree to disagree on that.
Mario World, you're not able to play the first level of every world in the first, 10 minutes. And you can just do whatever you want. So, yeah.
Well, and I never played Mario 3 that way.
Yeah.
I always forget that you can do that.
Yeah.
And you're such a secrets guy.
Yeah.
I was always much more of a linear player. But also...
I always get stuck.
Because of that, Mario World blew my mind with the secret areas you could go to.
No,
and I found those things on my own. I didn't know about it when I first started playing.
Right.
I would just discover it like I think a lot of kids did.
Yeah.
And I wasn't getting magazines, I wasn't calling hotlines, I didn't know any of that stuff.
Yeah. I really wish I did live back then, because it would be so cool to call the Sega Secrets hotline. That's the one thing that I really wish I could have done.
And of course, Nintendo Power had theirs.
Yeah,
and they started that whole thing.
Yeah.
Let me read a couple comments here. Don Ranger Power, he's been coming a lot lately. Welcome, man. Hello, Captain Logan, Jayson, and all. Hope everyone is well on day 17 of Power Rangers month. I still don't know what he's talking about. Maybe he's doing a thing.
I'm not sure.
Because he keeps talking about Power Rangers month. Eric Brown getting the SNES on month 1 of its release was such a big deal. Yeah, and I didn't get it right away. I got it a few months or a year after it came out. I always think about it as 91, but I don't think I got mine until 92 probably.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it was out for a bit because my mom got it for me for my birthday, and my mom, like a lot of parents at that time, didn't really get the whole video game thing at all, and she had not bought a game system before. And my dad had the NES, and then he got a Genesis.
Okay.
And I don't fully remember my timeline with this, if I played... I want to say I had the Super Nintendo before I ever touched a Genesis.
Yeah.
And, like, my dad got the Genesis sometime after I got the Super Nintendo. My parents were split up. They were in different states. And I would play video games when I'd go to my dad's house in the summer or at Christmas whenever I visited. It was an 8-hour trip, so I only saw him 3 or 4 times a year. And that was one of the big things we would do together. And so I got really into and really good at the original Mario game, you know, Super Mario Brothers. And then my mom got me a Super Nintendo. I suspect partly because she knew I was playing video games there, and she knew that, you know, it would be a big deal to me if I had video games at our house too. So she got me a Super Nintendo, but I never got any other games for it until I moved to my dad's place.
Okay.
And I took my Super Nintendo with me. And that's the reason that I had a Genesis and a Super Nintendo growing up. I had both.
Oh, okay.
But initially, I just had a Super Nintendo and Mario World. It was the only game I had. I was only allowed to play it half an hour a day. And all I had was the one game. And we would occasionally rent things.
Yeah.
But my mom, you know, we weren't like super wealthy or anything. My mom wasn't, you know, constantly buying games for us.
Yeah.
And anyway, so that's kind of my initial history with the Super Nintendo. And I say this every time it comes up, so some of you guys have heard me mention this before, but grab the controller. Of course, the Super Nintendo box that I got had, and I think, were they always packed in with 2?
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah, they were.
Packed in with 2, and mine had, of course, Super Mario World, and some of the later releases had other things.
Yeah.
And this is, and my other controller, the original controllers that came with the system.
Yep.
So these are over 30 years old.
Yeah.
And they still function perfectly. And I've played with them like crazy.
Yeah.
Every other system I own, without exception, I have replaced controllers. All of them.
Really?
Never replaced these.
Wow.
1991.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
And I've been bragging about this for 15 years.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, can you believe this is this old?
Yeah.
And we could play it and play with it right now.
Yeah.
None of the buttons stick.
Nope.
They've got no problems at all. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's not because they just sit around and I never played with them.
Yeah. Because usually that would make it so that it didn't work anymore, I feel like.
Well, yeah.
Because it's not being used at all. That's why it would
no, not necessarily. I mean, if you have it... No, sorry, I missed what you were saying. If you had it in the right kind of area and it was packed away and it wasn't, you know, actually collecting dust, like if you had it packed in bubble wrap or something and it was in like a climate-controlled room for, you know, 10, 20 years, it'd probably come out like it was brand new.
Yeah.
I would think, like if you never touched it.
Yeah.
But anyway, Nintendo hardware was always really good, and unfortunately, that has not been as much the case in more recent years. Like, the Wii, I had problems with Wii remotes all the time.
Yep.
The Wii U, I had issues with the gamepad, and we can't even play our Wii U right now because the gamepad has a connector issue. It won't take a charge.
Yeah.
And then the Switch, of course, has the infamous, nefarious Joy-Con drift problem.
Yeah.
Which we, like so many other people, have experienced.
Yep.
So yeah, from my experience, the best hardware they ever had was the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so you're putting Super Nintendo in your top 3 systems. How much, I have to ask you this, have you really actually played with the system itself as opposed to emulating games, playing Super Nintendo games on in other ways, like on a on a Switch,
Yeah.
Virtual Console, that kind of thing.
So, I actually I haven't played this. I haven't really played a game on this since probably like 2017. And
We have some of the Retron though, which I'll kind of
does
count.
That count though?
I'll kind of count it. It's with the same
Okay,
controller.
well,
It is.
Yeah, I've played.
It's at least original hardware. No, it doesn't 100% count because it is technically kind of like emulation because it takes the ROM and it dumps it.
Yeah.
But the way nobody's going to care about this, but the way our setup is right now, we just don't even have this plugged in. So if we use original hardware, we tend to use the Retron.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been playing on the Retron a lot, but lately I've just been playing it more on the Switch and the Mini, which I'll grab as well.
Eric Brown, crap, I would just emulate. The system is just too iffy now. Yeah, honestly, just because I'm kind of lazy, I emulate more than I do anything these days. But for the games that I most like to play, and that I really like to play with the original controller, or with a USB controller that is reproduction that's shaped the same way.
Yeah.
I like to use the SNES Mini, which Jason's holding right now.
Yep.
And I'll go to the Switch. So there's a couple different ways that I'll play those games, like your Donkey Kong Countries, your Mario World, your Mario Kart.
Yeah. So yeah, this is the Mini stacked on top of the normal one.
There's the
If you
size
want
difference.
The size difference on that.
Solid Python, the Super Nintendo Classic was a fantastic mini console. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's great.
I still use it all the time.
It's how I got into the SNES, pretty much. I mean, like, really got into it. It's not how I started playing it. Like, I obviously started on, like, the cartridges, but...
You probably sampled a lot more games that way, though.
Yeah. That's how I got into, like... Well, is that how I got into, like, Super Metroid and stuff? I guess so.
Maybe you had started that somewhere else once, but I know you played a lot more of it.
I think I started it on the Switch, and then got more into it on the Mini.
Was that the first way you played Star Fox?
Yeah.
And I haven't even messed around very much with 2, which is on there.
Yeah.
Of course, the unreleased game that they finally released that way. Just because I suck at Star Fox and I never got very far in the original game, so I always think I don't think of myself as like a Star Fox fan, but I like Star Fox.
Yeah, I like Star Fox, but I suck at it.
I'm not great at it. I always got farther on 64.
And I've never even played 64. So.
Yeah, which you'll have to do.
Yeah.
And I have the original cartridge for that, but we've also been exploring the expansion pack on the Switch.
Yeah.
Which has it, and it would be fun to play that with. I don't know. I'm kind of enjoying. It's weird, like paying to play games you own already, but it's actually kind of nice because I can play with a controller I like better. Because unlike Jason, I don't like the 64 controller.
I want to get the 64 controller for the Switch, for Switch Online, because I just like. I don't know. I have a hard time playing those games, especially platformer games, with a normal controller. It's just weird. I don't know.
It depends on what the game is for me.
Yeah, I've been having a hard time playing because I've been playing Banjo-Kazooie on it. And I think we actually do have that original cartridge.
We have Banjo-Kazooie?
I'm not sure.
I don't think we do.
But,
Boy, it'd be weird if we did, because I never owned that before, and I've never played it more than, maybe I rented it on a weekend one time shortly after it came out.
But there are certain things where you need to, especially like shooting at the eggs and stuff, you need to hold a button down and press the C buttons, but I don't have C buttons. I have a stick.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of weird.
No, that's strange.
Yeah.
Anything that converts those as buttons to a stick, I don't see how that works.
Yeah.
With the exception of Mario 64, I feel like that would work okay.
Yeah, that works okay. But yeah, Banjo-Kazooie is weird with that. Pokemon Stadium is weird with that.
Oh, I bet. I appreciate playing Wave Race, and now we're talking about 64, but I appreciate Wave Race a lot with a classic controller.
Yeah.
It feels nicer.
Yeah.
It's more convenient. I'm doing tricks a little bit better
Oh, okay. Yeah.
than with the regular controller. It took a while to get used to that, just because I played that game for 20-something years with the 64 controller. But anyway, back to Super Nintendo. Okay,
Super Nintendo. Okay.
I'm gonna put you on the spot. Are you ready?
Put me on the spot.
Top 5 favorite Super Nintendo games of any genre in any order. Go ahead.
Go ahead, me. At this point, man, I have no idea what my number 1 would be. I think number 5 would be at this point Super Mario Kart.
I didn't think that would even make your list.
I used to not like it as much, but now it's one of the lesser Mario Kart games, of my opinion. But
that's not saying much, because Mario Kart is all
right,
solid and worth playing.
Yeah. Except Double Dash. And then 4, I'm gonna say.
Are you gonna go there?
I'm not sure. I'm gonna say my number 3 is Uniracers.
Uniracers.
My number 4.
It's a game a lot of people haven't played because it's been out of print. It's never been re-released anywhere. That is, for folks that don't know, that is a 2D side-scrolling racing game where you play as unicycles, and it has a really good rock soundtrack.
Yeah. Yeah, should I? Okay,
and
so
it's like pre-rendered 3D sprites.
Yeah. So Super Mario Kart, great. Probably one of the best games to play multiplayer on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
Dr. Mario and Tetris.
Oh,
sure.
sure.
The best ways to play those games.
Yep, both of them, absolutely.
Uniracers.
And for folks that haven't played that's the thing. You and I played together some.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to keep stopping you.
That's fine.
But for anybody that hasn't played Dr. Mario and Tetris on Super Nintendo, emulate that at some point if you don't have another way to play it, because there's a cool mode where it goes back and forth between the two games.
Yeah.
It's not just
Yeah.
you would expect, looking at that cartridge, that it's like Mario Duck Hunt or something, where it has each game separate, but it actually has a game mode that mixes them.
Yeah, which is really cool. Which they did again later with Puyo Puyo Tetris.
Did they really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
I've been wanting to play. Now, that's the whole game is Puyo Puyo Tetris.
Oh.
It's not.
There's
two
not a
different
way to
games.
play them separately.
Right. I'm pretty sure. I remember when that first came out, when the Switch first came out, but I never actually got it.
But I just thought Dr. Mario Tetris was really classy because it keeps the classic music from both of them.
Yeah. And then number 3, Uniracers. Probably the best multiplayer game, I think. And then I think at this point I'm gonna say.
I mean, unless you're a big Bomberman person.
Yeah, which I mean,
you got Super Nintendo Bomberman.
I never played Super Nintendo Bomberman, so
I've emulated it once or twice, but it's been a long time. I never owned that game.
Yeah.
What's the big one though that is supposed to be like the best Bomberman game?
I have no idea.
I can't remember. It's not the Super Nintendo one. I don't think. I think it's a different one.
I'm not sure. I don't know. My favorite is Bomberman 2 on NES, but
yeah.
Which no one played because it was one of the last games that came out for the NES.
Is that right?
It looks really good.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, number 2, I'm gonna probably say, at this point, I'm probably gonna say Kirby Superstar. There's just so much to do in it.
You've been playing that a ton lately.
I've been playing that.
Oh, that must be why you wanted to talk about Super Nintendo, because you've been playing a bunch of Super Nintendo lately. I forgot about that.
And then my number 1, I'm probably at this point gonna have to say Super Metroid.
Wow.
It has a great soundtrack. It's a huge game. It looks really good.
Yep. Super atmospheric.
Yeah.
Challenging.
Yeah. Man, when I had the opening thing and
Saturn Bomberman. That's what it is.
Oh,
Thanks,
okay.
everything so special. I'm rusty and I forgot about it. And I've never played that. But I knew there was another one that people talk about as definitive. There's like a consensus on this. That Saturn Bomberman is the best way to play Bomberman.
I didn't even know there was a weird.
Yeah.
Also, did you know that the Saturn port for Mortal Kombat Trilogy is one of the best ways to play that.
Yes, I've heard that.
Yeah.
You got
It's
it
like
on
the
64, and
I did.
I think it plays pretty well
It
there.
does play really good. It just
That
doesn't
controller notwithstanding.
It's actually, I agree with that for fighting games.
It's not great for fighting games.
But what are some... I do like Mario World. I just haven't played it enough, I feel like.
What I find with some folks with Mario World, and don't take this the wrong way, but some people find Mario World, when they start trying to get into it after playing 3, too much of a difficulty curve.
Yeah.
And they go, this game's too hard.
Yeah.
And then they don't get far enough in.
Yeah. Oh.
To have as much fun with it as I did when it was the only thing I got to play.
Yeah.
And so I played it like crazy. I mean, like I said, I only got to play like half an hour a day, but it's all I ever played.
Yeah.
So for several months straight, I'm playing Super Mario World half an hour a day, and I was getting really good at it.
Right.
And then I did the same thing with Sonic the summer after that.
Yeah.
Where we had we had a Genesis.
Yeah.
And my dad and I went out almost weekly and rented games. So I did play quite a bit on Genesis, more than I did with my mom with Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
But I didn't actually play with my mom, but I played with my dad, and we would. But all he owned when he first got the Genesis was get this, and he got the Genesis before I knew about it. So he already had a few games.
Okay.
He had Sonic 1.
Yeah.
He had Bubsy. And he and I loved Bubsy. We played it like crazy. Does not hold up. People hate that game. But we had... And I know this isn't a Sega discussion, but bear with me. We had Sonic 1, we had Bubsy, we had Columns, and we had Zombies Ate My Neighbors.
Wow, okay.
And I loved all those games, and I played them all the time.
Yeah.
But Sonic 1, I just played constantly. And it was quite a while before I got 2.
Yeah.
Anyway. Sorry, you're taking me down memory lane here. Oh, well, we were talking about Mario World.
Okay, so
yeah,
we finally got the expansion pack for the Switch, and
been thoroughly enjoying that.
Yeah, it comes with GBA games.
Yes.
It comes with Super Mario Advance 4, Super Mario Brothers 3.
Yes.
And it comes with the e-reader levels.
Yes, which I've never played.
I have
Did you
played
start it?
some of them.
Are they insane?
You are going to really enjoy them because it incorporates game things from other games into the levels.
Really?
So there is a secret pipe in a level that has the little triangle things that make you go sideways and upside down from Mario World.
Oh, that's cool.
And there's a whole level that has vegetables for Mario 2.
That's cool.
And it's really cool.
Yeah, it's neat that they brought those back in.
Yeah.
And that you can play them with that.
Yeah. They did that in
because for a long
the
time
Wii U
that was
version.
just lost content for anybody that didn't get them at the time.
Yeah, and they had them in the Wii U version, but we never got Virtual Console games. And
no, I didn't buy Virtual Console games on the Wii U really.
Yeah, we had a couple, but
yeah, not much. I did a lot more on the Wii.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to rebuy anything.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of what I wanted already. And then by the time we went to the Wii U, it was more limited.
Yeah.
Because the Wii had a much bigger Genesis library, I think, if memory serves.
Yeah.
By the way, for folks that don't know what Jason's talking about, with the old e-reader levels, you were literally, am I remembering this right? You had to buy cards that had the levels.
So they had this thing that plugged into your GBA that had a card slot, and you would get cards from like the store or whatever, and you would swipe them, and it would do certain things in your game. So like there was stuff for Animal Crossing. So you could like swipe it, and then somehow I don't remember, it did things in your GameCube game. If you connected the thing to the thing, and yeah, Nintendo was weird back then.
It's complicated. Nintendo's weird now.
That's true. And then they also
have you seen the trailers for Super Mario Wonder?
Uh-huh.
Nintendo's weird now.
Nintendo is weird now.
Can't wait for that.
Yeah. But yeah. And then it also had some like NES games too, where you would like they were very limited, so they only had like Donkey Kong and Ice Climber and, you know, like the smaller games.
Yeah.
But you had like 5 cards and you
Only
could
so much
swipe all of them
memory.
so that you could play one very small NES game.
Solid Python expansion pack is a fantastic deal now. So many games, and they keep libraries updated every month. Yeah, they've been adding to it much more regularly and frequently than they were a while back with just the NES and Super Nintendo library. Where for a while there, you were paying for the online, and they just weren't adding much.
Yeah.
But the expansion pack has been a lot better.
Yeah. What other Super Nintendo things should we talk about?
So, what would you say? So you just gave us your top 5.
Yeah.
And by the way, can I throw at you a couple things I thought might be on your list that you didn't mention?
Yeah.
I was surprised, and maybe you just didn't even have your head in certain spots with this.
Right.
I was surprised not to hear you bring up Yoshi's Island.
Yeah.
Is that because the way you played that was a slightly different version?
No.
Because I know you played it on 3DS. You
Right,
played,
which is a completely different game.
It's a different game.
Yeah.
I said slightly. Is that a completely
No,
different
that's
game?
a completely.
Okay.
That's a sequel.
Okay. It looks so similar. I thought it was maybe just adding levels or something. I didn't realize.
Yeah, it is a different game. With like the
I know
same
the
plot.
soundtrack's obnoxious, but that's all I really know about that.
And the original game has a great soundtrack.
It does.
Yeah, love the soundtrack with that game.
I started finally playing through that.
It's a
Did I
little
tell
too
you?
puzzly for me. I don't know. I can't really.
I've made it like 2.5 worlds in, and it's really fun.
It's really fun.
I couldn't get into it when I was a kid because I didn't like that it was called Super Mario World 2.
Yeah.
And then the mechanics were completely different.
Yeah.
And so I just couldn't get excited about it. Hurt my feelings.
If they just made it a Yoshi game, like Yoshi's Story and Yoshi's
just call it Yoshi whatever.
Woolly World, like they did later, which Yoshi's Woolly World is one of the best games on the
I've still
Wii U.
never played that.
That's a great game.
But yeah, I didn't give it a fair shake when I was a kid and when it came out because I just didn't like the way it was marketed. Yeah. I was expecting one thing and it turned out to be something else.
Yeah.
But if they had just called it Yoshi something in the first place.
Right.
But the art design in that game is so unique.
Yeah. Do you like the original lineup for that system? Because you had...
You mean the launch titles?
Yeah, launch titles.
So you had Mario World.
Mario World.
What else was there?
F-Zero.
That's right.
And SimCity.
Yeah, and one of these things is not like the others. I mean, obviously they're all different because one's a platformer, one's a racing game, and one's a simulator game.
Yeah.
But the difference is 2 of them feel like games made for a console that you're supposed to use a controller with. And one of them feels like a really wonky port.
Yeah, which people actually do praise.
Yeah.
And really like, and I don't...
That can't hold up
There's
now.
no way.
But I never liked those kind of games anyway, so I'm not really qualified to speak on that.
And
I never
the
really
SNES
tried
mouse
that.
hadn't come out either.
Yeah,
You know-
is it compatible with it?
No, it's not.
See,
you know
it
what
should've
game
been.
is though?
But-
Sim and.
Is were there other ones? I know there were other sim games on the computer, but I didn't know if Super Nintendo made any.
Super
more.
Nintendo
Did they
had
do the
SimCity, Sim and SimCity 2000.
That's what it was.
And I think that was it. I think it also had its own game that didn't get released on computer, which was like Sim Towers or something.
Yeah.
I think that was. I could be wrong about that though.
I totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
You were just a treasure trove of knowledge.
Thanks.
Yeah, I completely
that's a good thing.
forgot about that. I thought maybe one of the launch titles was I can't think of it. It's on the tip of my tongue and I can't think of the name of it. Sorry, but anyway, I know it's not now, but it was a really early game and I just can't think of it right now.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, oh, help me out! Like I just can't think of it. The game with hang gliding and all of
Pilot
that.
Wings.
Pilot Wings, yeah. How early was Pilot Wings? Which of course
I
I
know-
played on. Which of course I played the 64 game.
Pilot Wings was
A lot.
early.
But it's pretty early.
I don't know if it was like a launch title, but it was that first year.
Pilot
Maybe
Wings
that-
64
was
wasn't
a
it?
launch title. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, it took me a minute to think of that because I just had my head in other things.
Yeah.
We're talking about so many different games.
I know.
Okay, so, you have a very reasonable number one for your favorite game on the system.
Yeah.
For me, it would certainly be the original Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah,
And I was
which I
kind of
was thinking
surprised not to see a Donkey Kong Country on your top 5.
I
That was the other one I was going to ask you about.
haven't played enough of the game. I feel like. I don't know. I've
You haven't
played more
gotten-
than
You haven't gotten real good at those
I haven't
yet.
gotten real good. I haven't really found like I haven't really found that thing where it's like, oh, this game is really fun. Like I really like this game, you know? Like I don't know if I really like have that with Donkey Kong Country.
Like it's fun. You haven't gotten sucked in yet,
Right.
Where you can't put it down.
Weird.
Because Donkey Kong Country is a I can't put down kind of game.
Okay, yeah, and that's like Kirby games for me,
Yeah.
which I know you can't get into.
Well, I mean they're fine.
Yeah, I got into.
But no, I've never gotten addicted to Kirby.
Yeah.
Like I did with Sonic and Donkey Kong Country. And
Yeah. And Kirby Superstar is actually really cool because it's just a bunch of different like games that are like smaller than your normal game, but some of them take like an hour to play through, and it's really fun.
yeah, I'll give that more of a shot at some point.
Like Great Cave Events took me like 3 days to complete, and it was only one of the like that 8 games that they had on there. I was like, what?
But what I was about to say is, so you have, you know, a real legit top tier favorite Super Nintendo game that I think very few people would argue with you about, of course. Some of the comments earlier was like, yeah, I just played it. It's Super Metroid is like a 10 out of 10 kind of game.
Yeah.
What would you say would now, if I can put you on the spot again and kind of pivot,
Yeah.
what would you say are the 5 games that you would most expect other people to put at the top?
5 games that other people?
Yeah.
Ooh.
And then I want to compare it to what the actual top 5 best-selling Super Nintendo games are.
Oh, the best-selling?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I know the top 5 best-selling.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Tell me what they are.
It's Super Mario World. I'll see if I can do it in order.
See, okay.
It's Super
Wow.
Mario World.
Okay.
Super Mario All-Stars, Donkey Kong Country, and then after that, I'm not exactly sure.
He's got it so far.
I've got it so far.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, we can try to look at like a top-rated list instead. That's probably a better idea.
What-
anyway.
what-
I just said that because I have this
Wait,
up.
so-
Can you make a guess? Because you've nailed the first 3.
Okay. So Super Mario World, Super Mario All-Stars, Donkey Kong Country.
That's awesome.
Super Mario Kart.
That's got to be in there, right?
And number 5, I'm gonna say, what was a huge game? F-Zero.
So Mario World is number 1.
Yep.
All Stars is number 2.
Yep.
You said that. Donkey Kong Country is number 3.
Yep. Super Mario,
Mario
Kart. And
Kart
then
is 4.
Street Fighter 2.
Street Fighter 2 World
Obviously.
Warrior.
Dang it.
Yep.
Where
and
is
then Donkey
F-Zero?
Kong Country 2 is 6.
Wow.
Link to the Past is 7. Link to the Past I would have guessed would be in the top 5, but it was really close. And
Link to the Past. I should probably play through that game. I just...
I've tried a couple times, but I get lost and I need to
just-
look up everything because I can't play Zelda to save my life.
See, I just glitch into the game and then just beat the game in like 5 minutes.
Well, don't play it like that. Yoshi's Island is number 8.
Yep.
Street Fighter 2 Turbo is 9. So 2 Street Fighters.
Yeah.
And we haven't even talked about fighting games yet on the Super Nintendo. And then Star Fox is number 10. And then Donkey Kong Country 3 was 11, even though that game's not great compared to the other 2.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy 6 is 12. I didn't realize Killer Instinct sold quite that well. That was 13. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
But yeah, what would you say are... I mean, we probably named a lot of them just looking at this list, but I was going to say, what would you say are other games that you would expect maybe some of our audience to put at the top?
Of our audience?
Yep. Give me just a second.
Yeah.
You keep talking, I'll be right back.
Alright. So I don't know, top 5 that people would say that
Because I'd say Link to the Past is definitely
Link to the Past is up there.
one of the big ones.
Super Metroid.
Earthbound?
Or,
There are definitely some people that would
there are
put
definitely
Earthbound up there.
some people, yeah.
Because we haven't talked about RPGs because I didn't grow up as an RPG guy.
Oh, well then,
and I
yeah.
didn't have RPGs, but I played a little bit here and there. I dabbled because I had friends in high school that played some of that stuff. So my introduction to the RPG was Earthbound.
Okay.
I had a friend that was like, "Well, I know you don't like sword and sorcery stuff, but you might like this. It's kind of set in present day."
Yeah.
And then I would assume Final Fantasy VI people would
Final
probably...
Fantasy VI, yeah. I was just about to say that. And then Mega Man X, probably, and then also...
That's on the Mini.
Yeah.
If you ever want to play that. And,
yeah. And then...
Is that on, is that on the online Switch?
Not.
I don't think it is.
It's not. It's because, Mega Man Legacy Collection, they don't put any of the Mega Man games
Because they want you to buy it?
Because they want you to buy it.
They want me to buy it. They want me specifically to buy it. And then obviously World and Donkey Kong.
Yeah. Would it be World or would it be Donkey Kong?
For me specifically?
No,
or...
for people. I feel like probably Donkey Kong.
I think that's a split.
Yeah. I'm gonna try to rank them. How people would rank them.
Yeah.
I'd probably say number 5 would be Super Mario Kart. And then I'd probably say number 4 would be number 4 would be what was that? Mega Man X.
Yeah.
And then
that game's hard.
yeah, and then Donkey Kong Country, and then not Mega Man X again, and then Final Fantasy VI, and then Super Metroid.
Yeah, I think probably so.
Yeah.
And then there are, well, I was gonna say there's people that are into genres, of course, that I just don't know well enough to even name a lot of games.
Yeah.
Like shooters, like role-playing games. Yeah. Like I can name a couple, but remind me, is Super Nintendo known better for shooters, or is Genesis known better for shooters?
I
feel like Super Nintendo gets that, right?
It's definitely more known for run and gun.
Well, I'm not talking about run and gun. I'm talking
like
about space shooters. Yeah. Top down and side to side. I think Super Nintendo is known better for that.
Probably, I think so. I don't know.
Because SNES Drunk talks about them quite a bit, and he's a big fan of those.
Yeah.
So I think it's that.
Yeah, and then also...
Dimwit Monkey says, just dropping in to say Goof Troop was a great SNES game, too. I never played that.
Yeah, I feel like some people might have Super C on there.
Oh, I bet so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good call. I wasn't even thinking about that. And then, with fighting games, Killer Instinct, if Gold had never come out, would probably top some people's lists with Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
But then you get Killer Instinct Gold on 64, and I imagine that a lot of people are probably amending their Super Nintendo list just because they're not playing that anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it did kind of feel outdated after that.
Yeah.
Even
Clay
though
Fighter
it was
2 is great, though.
Clay Fighter 2 is fun, but it is but I mean, I'm not going to compare it to Killer Instinct.
No.
But it is remarkable what they were able to do with that hardware to even get a decent port of Killer Instinct on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
Because that is because Rare makes the arcade machine first, right?
Yeah.
Surely?
Pretty sure.
Surely?
Surely.
Solid Python, you're too enthusiastic about Super Mario Kart, fellas. I don't think I encountered anyone that likes that game nowadays. I grew up with that. I got really good at it. I kind of mastered that when I was a kid.
And the only reason
my whole generation loved that, and that is very much, for most people anyway, a you had to be there kind of game, because a lot of people feel like it looks and plays outdated compared to the newer games. For me, they're just different things. I don't think about modern Mario Kart when I play Super Nintendo Mario Kart. I have no trouble switching gears between them.
Yeah, and I only put it on the list that I thought other people would say because I've seen it on a lot of lists.
Yeah. That is an age thing.
Yeah, and I don't know if it would be top 5.
If you're over 35, there's a chance you say that, but if you're younger than that, I'd be really shocked.
Yeah.
Yep. You did kind of have to be there. Oh! I'm glad you said that, Dimwit Monkey. He said also Castlevania 4 is so good. Super Castlevania. Which I don't like as well as Bloodlines. Fight me. But they're both wonderful. I've also never beaten either of them. So if I finally finish those games, I may feel differently once I get to the end of them. But I've been a quarter to halfway through each of those. I think I've been maybe a little bit farther in Bloodlines.
Yeah.
Than Castlevania 4. That is a series that I've had to... Kind of like I've attempted to do with Mega Man, but I suck at Mega Man. I cannot get good at that game. Castlevania, I've kind of retroactively had to go back and try to learn, because I didn't grow up with those.
Yeah. See, I actually got into Mega Man and Kirby because of, like, the 2 games that you had on Virtual Console on the Wii U.
What were they again?
You had Mega Man 1 and you had Kirby's Adventure. And I got into both of those series because of that.
Oh, that's funny. I forgot what I had.
Yeah.
I think I got that Kirby game because I had a friend over at one point who wanted to play it and I didn't have it anywhere, so we downloaded it that way. Because he and I always played 16-bit stuff together.
Yeah.
What history do you have with fighting games on the Super Nintendo?
Not much. I mean, I played the Power Rangers fighting game a lot.
Oh, yeah. We'd be remiss if we didn't bring that up.
Yeah.
That's always been one of our favorite games on the Super Nintendo.
But other than that, I don't know. I played Street Fighter 2 a little bit, and I've never played Killer Instinct 1 on the Super Nintendo.
I've emulated it, but it's been a long time.
I've only played the arcade version, which is not as good as 2. It's not, I don't know, it's just, it just feels different.
I don't think anyone disagrees with you on that. The only thing I wish 2 had done is hang on to the Velociraptor.
That's
just a matter of principle for me, really.
Riptor.
It's got some cool music and stuff, and it's a good, solid looking game, but 2 was definitely a wonderful upgrade. It's kind of like going from Virtua Fighter to Virtua Fighter 2.
Yeah. Or going from Mortal Kombat 1 to Mortal Kombat 2.
Maybe more so, because I will still play Virtua Fighter 1. But I don't play Killer Instinct 1 that much.
Right, me neither. And I don't play Mortal Kombat 1 that much either, so...
No, but you're also obsessed with 3, so you don't even play 2 all that often.
Right, but 2 is a completely different game.
Speaking of Mortal Kombat, have you ever tried to play that on Super Nintendo?
No.
Because I know you're into that series enough. I thought maybe you had, or have you watched videos on it maybe just to see what the
I have
what the differences are.
I'm a big Genesis guy when it comes to Mortal Kombat. Like
that's everybody.
It has the best port of Ultimate. It has the best port of Mortal Kombat 1.
Sounds better.
It sounds better, yeah.
On that system.
Look, it's DJ.
Oh look, it's DJ. Hello, sir. Speaking of DJ, we will be doing a Captain Logan show tonight in just a few hours, 7 o'clock Central.
What you talking about?
We're going to take a look at the Rotten Tomatoes list of the 88 most, or like top superhero movies by percentage.
And see how you disagree with it so much?
Yeah, and just roll our eyes constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's our plan.
Okay, yeah.
No, we'll see. We'll see where our opinions actually line up with it and when they don't. But it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
And especially because that's not, it's not a survey. It's not anybody's particular opinions. It's just the Rotten Tomatoes percentages.
Yeah.
So it's the movies that get close to 100%, they're at the top, and then and then you go down. So I haven't looked at it yet. We're gonna do that blind.
I'm excited about that. Actually.
That'll be cool. Yeah.
I might tune in.
You should.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. We talked about Ninja Turtles on our last show, and we brought up Turtles in
did.
Time,
Yeah.
and we brought up Hyperstone Heist,
And you're wearing it.
and I'm wearing a turtle shirt right now. You said on that show that you prefer Hyperstone Heist.
Yeah.
You're one of the few people in the world that does,
Yeah.
and I think that they're both kind of on par with each other.
I've only played Hyperstone Heist once, and I've played Turtle in Time once. So,
Oh, okay. So you don't even have a lot to go on with that.
Right.
Genesis was certainly more the place to go for beat 'em ups overall. There were plenty on Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
But I think Genesis, maybe it was just because that was thought of as the more grown-up console. It was more teenagers playing that, and they liked violent games, so they were going to Genesis for Mortal Kombat because Sega pushed Mortal Kombat real hard,
Yeah.
and because you had the blood and the stuff, and infamously the Super Nintendo you had the code and everything. But I think people tended to go to Genesis for beat 'em ups over Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think of Maximum Carnage on the Genesis before I think of it on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
And things like that. You had the port of The Punisher, which I don't know if that went to Super Nintendo. I think that might have just been Genesis.
Yeah. I don't think that. I'm actually not sure.
Yeah, I have to look that up.
There's yeah.
Adam March actually just asked a question about Maximum Carnage. Asked if I've played that with you. I don't know if we've actually sat down and tried to play that together. It's only one player.
Is it?
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, you play as Spider-Man at the beginning, and then later you can unlock Venom and pick between them. Play as Venom instead of Spider-Man, but it's not 2-player.
Okay.
I don't believe.
Well, yeah.
I don't
Solid
remember
Python,
there being a mode.
SNES did have all the Final Fight games.
Yeah, so NES, and I never played those. So Super Nintendo was Final Fight, and Genesis was, help me out, what's the big beat 'em up series on Genesis? That a lot
Streets of Rage.
Streets of Rage. Thank you. Just in the moment I couldn't think of it. Yeah, Streets of Rage, and. Most people I've talked to say Streets of Rage is the better franchise, but I've never played Final Fight, so I can't speak to it.
I've never played Final Fight either. See, I used to always think that was a fighting game. Like, I didn't even think that was a beat 'em up.
For the longest time, I did too.
Yeah.
I have that with some different titles of things and franchises.
Yeah. Well, it sounds almost the exact same as Fatal Fury. Like, Final Fight and Fatal Fury, I get mixed up all the time. Like, they have... I feel like they have similar, like, logos as well.
I had this with Dead or Alive for the longest time. I was shocked and dismayed to learn that was a fighting game franchise.
What did you think it was?
I thought it was like an FPS or something.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't sound like a fighting game.
Yeah.
Dead or Alive? It sounds like Left 4 Dead or something.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I figured he was shooting zombies. I didn't know.
Yeah, that's true.
And then I come to find out that it's got Virtua Fighter characters in it, and I'm like, what is happening?
I do want to see
later.
that series as an FPS.
Was it FPS?
Like,
with zombies in it?
Girls in bikinis, like, fighting.
And just put dinosaurs in there?
Yeah.
Sounds hilarious.
You want to talk about the Super Game Boy?
You can talk about the Super Game Boy.
Yeah, that came out.
You have one.
Games on it. Yeah, I've never actually used it because I'd have to use it on this thing.
Oh, we can hook that back up. Yeah. Sorry, I'm lazy. I just haven't hooked that back up.
But yeah, you can do different color things and stuff. And did you know that they made a sequel?
It was a big deal. They had all those options. Yeah, it was neat. No.
They made a sequel only in Japan.
Of course.
That you were able to plug the adapter thingy in to play with another Game Boy.
Oh.
Or you could play with another Super Nintendo.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And that would have been awesome.
Have you ever... Because I know you're a big fan of the Game Genie. Have you ever used one on the Super Nintendo?
No, I really want one on the Super Nintendo. That's the one I want.
Okay.
Or the Game Boy one,
because
it's really cool, because the Game Boy one's really cool because it has the book inside of it. Like, that's
Hilariously, the things Jason wants for Christmas are the things that, like, I might have wanted 30 years ago for Christmas.
awesome. Yeah.
Because you tend to...
Yeah.
Because you tend to want to, like, collect old stuff before you even get that excited about new stuff. I mean, there is new stuff that you want.
There is new stuff that I do want, yeah. What was that? Oh yeah, and did you know that Space Invaders on the Game Boy has a thing on the Super Game Boy where if you put it in there, you can either play the Game Boy game or you can play a 16-bit version of Space Invaders?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they have a Super Nintendo game built into a Game Boy game where you can only play it if you put it in the Super Game Boy.
That's crazy.
It's really cool.
You know what my favorite puzzle game on the Super Nintendo was?
Yeah. No.
Pack Attack. You don't know what Pack Attack is?
No, I know what Pack Attack is, but
Yeah?
why?
Oh, I loved it.
What is that?
It's a great game.
I think that's actually hilarious.
I think I was better at that than Dr. Mario.
Wow.
I think he's actually making fun of me over Pack Attack. That game's fun.
I mean, it's fun.
Yeah.
I'd put, like, every other Super Nintendo puzzle
I
game
put
over.
all of them over that.
I mean, there are some really good puzzle games, though, on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
Like, you had... Like, that was the console, I feel like. Because
Over
you
Genesis,
had,
yeah.
Yeah. Because you had Dr. Mario, Tetris. You had Tetris Attack. That was a good game.
Yeah.
You had...
Which was not Tetris at all.
Yeah. And I know I'm always talking about Puyo Puyo, but Kirby's Avalanche was great because it was just Puyo Puyo.
And for people that don't know, that's Robotnik's Mean Beam Machine,
Yes.
but skinned. And then the same thing happened over on Super Nintendo
Yeah. Because...
with Kirby.
Yeah. And then there was also what was that game called that I've been getting into that like no one talks about, that was it was a Data East game.
No, I don't know.
I hate Data East, but they made actually a pretty good
I hate them. Thanks for making this game, though.
They actually made a
LJN made
good...
Maximum Carnage.
Yeah, that's true. They made a good puzzle game. I showed it to you at one point.
Yeah.
It's the game where it's the weird one with like the demon girl and stuff, and you like pick stuff from the top and like you throw it to the other side of the screen and you like line them up and they're all at the top and you like shoot the stuff.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, that one was, I thought it was really fun.
Solid Python Final Fight was supposed to be Street Fighter 2 at first. They changed it, but the games still take place in the same universe as Street Fighter. Oh, interesting. That might be partly why the aesthetic never grabbed me, just the little bit of gameplay that I've seen, because I've never been a big Street Fighter guy.
I'm not a big Street Fighter guy either. Although I do want Street Fighter 6, because that game looks amazing.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything from it.
Yeah. They put Ninja Turtles in it.
Oh, yeah, I heard that. And for free, I think.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
I thought it was just DLC. Oh.
I may be wrong about that. Nobody quote me, but I saw a headline or something the other day that was like, and it's free, and I'm like, really? That's crazy if that's true, but I don't actually know. But yeah, I always kind of preferred the atmosphere and especially the sound of Streets of Rage.
Yeah.
But again, I never actually played Final Fight.
I want to finally play Streets of Rage 2, but I'm just not a big beat-em-up guy.
And you know, the other big difference between them, unless I'm wrong, because you know this stuff better than I do, but I'm pretty sure Final Fight was arcade ports and Streets of Rage was made and optimized initially for the Genesis, and so you had a scaled down series versus a series that was made specifically for that system.
I didn't think Final Fight was arcade ports though.
I didn't realize it until Arcade 1-Up made machines of it.
Really?
Yeah.
Did they? Oh, weird.
And they wouldn't have done that if that wasn't an arcade machine. So.
Right.
Anyway, we are right at an hour.
Yeah.
I know this is a thing you could probably talk about all day long.
Yeah.
But is there anything else that you want to bring up real quick? Maybe we can stay for 2 or 3 more minutes if you want to.
I'm not sure.
It is still one of my favorite controllers.
Yeah, the controller's great.
I think for like 2D games for that era before you get into like 3D platformers and other things that make a lot of sense to have a stick, that's the definitive controller.
Yeah.
And as much as I like the Genesis controller, the Super Nintendo controller is nicer in your hands.
Yeah.
I've always liked the weight of it a little bit better. I like the size of it better. It's a little smaller.
Yeah.
I feel like I can hold it longer.
Okay, so the first one was
The first one was an arcade machine,
port.
but then 2 and 3 are not. Okay. Thanks, Solid Python. I didn't know that. Well, Jason, thanks for bringing up this topic. Oh, something else I was going to bring up real quick is there is a fighting game that you've played on Super Nintendo that you didn't bring up, and that is World Heroes 2. Remember World Heroes 2?
Is that with Barbecue Haya?
Yes, that's with Rasputin.
Yeah.
Who every time he shoots a fireball, he says something, and it sounds distinctly like what he's saying is Barbecue Haya. We don't actually know what he's saying, and it's probably supposed to be in Russian. But the first time Jason played that game with me, he and Freddy would not stop going around the house saying Barbecue Haya. I felt like we would be remiss if we didn't finish up by bringing up Barbecue Haya.
Yeah.
Dimwit Monkey, have you guys tried any 8-bit Duo controllers? They're basically modern versions of SNES controllers. Well, that if it's the same company you're talking about, do they not have licenses with some of the major first-party companies to just put out replicas? Like, is that the same company that does? Maybe it's not. I forget. But that does the Genesis and Saturn controllers that I've bought. Mm-hmm. It may not be the same company. I forget now. Jareth Gearhart, I just got done playing New Super Lucky Tale. Oh, I keep meaning to play that, and I've never done that.
What's that?
That's a more modern 2D platformer that looks really good. A couple of people have recommended me that.
Cool.
We didn't talk about a lot of other platformers on the Super Nintendo besides the obvious, but I mean, of course there were tons of them. That was like 70% of what was made back then were side scrollers, and the big ones for me, apart from major first party Mario stuff, was A Cool Spot. I played all the time.
Yeah. Okay, there's a game that we can't end without talking about.
Yeah.
And that is Vegas Sticks.
Okay, sure.
Vegas Sticks is great.
That's wonderful, yeah.
Yeah. I have nothing else to say about it.
That is a casino game.
It is a casino game.
And it's nice for atmosphere. It's got a fun like kind of chill soundtrack.
Yeah.
That it just feels authentic, like it's the right kind of mood for Vegas. It's neat because it has something of a hub world. Like you walk around a casino, and then you find the games you want to play.
Yeah.
As opposed to just picking from a menu.
Yeah, I've actually played that story mode before.
Have you?
Yeah, I haven't finished it or anything, but I've played.
So you start with a certain amount of money, and then you go around the casino and you gamble at tables and slot machines.
Yeah.
And whatever money you make or lose, that's what you have to work with for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
So it's cool. It gives it. The stakes are higher. The Vegas stakes are higher. But I always loved roulette, and that was my favorite way to play roulette.
Yeah.
But
see, I've only played roulette.
Oh, you haven't played anything else on there? It's got blackjack, it's got poker, it's got slot machines.
It's got craps.
It's got craps, yeah. And I never really got into that, but
I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan.
I'm glad you brought that up, I guess. Solid Python, speaking of beat 'em ups, my stepmom was obsessed with the Vegas stakes. That's why I played that game. Speaking of beat 'em ups, Batman Returns for Super NES was awesome. Yeah, that is one of that system's better beat 'em ups. Maybe if you put it side by side, you'll find that the track record between Genesis and Super Nintendo for beat 'em ups is actually kind of equal. But I would have to look real close at it, because I mean both the Ninja Turtles games are really good.
Right.
And like I said, I would have to play some Final Fight before I could decide if it really has a decent library of those.
There's no way it's better than
over Genesis. There's no way.
There's no way. And I've only played 3.
Yeah, and you need to play 2 because it's wonderful.
Play 2.
Let's end on this comment because it's a good one. Trevor Gano, this is still probably the greatest leap in quality of games between generations. Super Nintendo felt like where developers predicted what they started. I think that's accurate.
Yeah.
And I think there was this kind of worry when the system was launched, this initial fear that we really hadn't stepped up enough from the NES. You had a lot of parents that were really upset that Nintendo was trying to get them to buy a new console when just a few years ago they had bought an NES, and they assumed that because they bought this machine they have to keep buying product for, that it would be a real long time, or they would never have to buy another machine. And they felt like it was just kind of, money milking, but they didn't get that the technology was constantly changing, and that we were certainly in a period where there was a lot of innovation happening really hard. Like, as soon as a product came out, it was like, the next day or the next week, it felt like something else was in development that was well beyond it already.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like all through the 90s. And when you got the launch titles for the Super Nintendo, like you were talking about earlier, there were a lot of reviews of Mario World that were like, the game's fun, but it's not visually as impressive as we expected it to in showcasing the hardware. And a lot of people felt like F-Zero was a way better showcase of the hardware.
Yeah. I am glad that both of them came out at the same time.
Yeah.
Because, like, F-Zero felt like a completely different thing.
That felt really impossible to get anywhere near the NES.
Yeah.
And of course, there is a lot of stuff that Mario World is doing that you couldn't do on the NES, and it's certainly bigger than you could have put on that system. I mean, that was the bigger deal, was just how large that game is. But it was a little bit more gimmicky, I think, in how it was showcasing the hardware, and it only did it every so often, right? So, there was more detail on the screen. But I think people were expecting, more colors. They were expecting to be flashier. They were expecting it to be even more detailed than it was. And then occasionally it would throw something in your face and go, look, we have Mode 7! And you go, okay, great. So when I beat a boss, it can stretch its face and come at the screen. All right.
Yeah.
Like, who cares?
Yeah.
And so it took a little while before stuff came out on that game that started really blowing people's minds, like Super Metroid.
Yeah.
And then you get into the latter days of the system when you're just before 64 comes out and we start doing pre-rendered graphics. Yeah. And you start seeing things that are kind of like faked 3D that look pretty credible.
Yeah.
And people are going, God, I can't even believe you can do this on this system.
Yeah. Because
people didn't understand what pre-rendered meant and what they were looking at. And so it looked like you had 3D graphics on a machine that was built to do side-scrolling and not much else.
Yeah.
Besides the Mode 7 thing, which is also kind of faked 3D in its way.
Yeah. The last game, I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but the last game that came out for the Super Nintendo was Kirby's Dream Land 3.
The very last game.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And that game is very pre-rendered, and I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to play it because it hurts my eyes.
Is it hard to look at?
It's hard to look at.
Kind of dated now?
Yeah, I don't know.
Does it feel like it's just trying really hard to look like something akin to a 64 game or something?
It stays very true to its name, it feels like I'm dreaming. Like,
it feels like you're on drugs playing this game.
Yeah. Just like the colors are just really weird.
Okay, well, we went 10 minutes longer than I meant to. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. And Jayson, this was a real fun discussion.
Yeah.
And I know you love talking about video games.
Yes.
So this will not be our last video game discussion.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
I'm
Wrecking
sure.
Crew 98. That was the last game in Japan.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. That was a puzzle game.
They did a Wrecking Crew puzzle game.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen gameplay of it?
Yeah, it looks pretty fun. And then you could also play the original NES Wrecking Crew on it as well.
Oh, crazy. I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
Well, anyway. See, I always learn a lot when I talk to you about video games.
Yes.
Well, Jayson, thanks for bringing up the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, mine's still in pretty good shape. What do
Yeah.
you say? Like, the coloration's not too bad?
The coloration's not bad at all. It's not.
Like the NES, they tend to get kind of yellowed.
Yeah, and yours isn't at all.
Is it discolored at all?
No,
It's
not
pretty
really.
good. Yeah, I guess I kept it out of the sun. So I feel
Yeah.
good about that.
Well, I mean, who's playing it? Who's playing their Super Nintendos, like, outside?
Well, not outside, but what would happen is if you had too much natural light in a room,
Yeah.
they would get discolored. That was kind of the nice thing about Sega putting out nothing but black consoles.
Yeah.
That you didn't have to worry about that. Well, anyway, once again, we appreciate you guys. I was Captain Logan.
And I was Jayson.
And we'll see you again probably in a couple weeks for another one of these.
Yes.
And join us tonight, if you're so inclined, for the Captain Logan Show.
Yeah, I
Bye,
might
folks.
do that.